Hello and welcome to the Centered Soul Podcast. Oh my God, this is so long overdue, you guys. I am literally so excited to be here. I just want to say before we get too deep into this that no matter what, this is the first episode you want to listen to. I don't care if the podcast is 12 years old. This is the first episode that you want to listen to because we're going to be laying down like the foundation and the kind of like rules and guidelines for listening to my podcast. And it is just very important foundational work that we're going to talk about today. So make sure you start here no matter what year it is. With that being said, hello, my name is Danielle Rose. I am a highly intuitive psychic, Reiki energy healer, and your guide for mental, emotional, and energetic healing. In this podcast, I will very, very, very often rant about how to better center your soul. I have learned in life that there is such thing as pain, but there does not need to be such thing as suffering, okay? No matter what life throws at you, you are allowed to feel that pain. But you are not required to suffer. And there are ways to feel pain without suffering. I'm talking depression, anxiety, stress. I'm talking grief, literally anything. You don't need to suffer through that pain. And that is probably going to be the premise of my entire life here on earth, teaching people how to not suffer from their own mental and from the things that life throws at them. So, if that sounds like something that you would like to learn how to master, then you are in the right place to hear me rant about it for the rest of my life. I hope that you enjoy. So rule number one that we need to first discuss today is just because I'm right does not mean that it's true. Okay. If I say something and you're like, wow, Danielle, that really resonates for me. That really hits home. That doesn't mean that it's true. Okay. And I need you to understand that. Because rule number two is you need to be able to think for yourself if you are going to listen to me. Honestly, if you're going to listen to anyone, you need to know how to think for yourself because then you run the risk of taking on information that is not true and applying it to your life and making things more complicated for yourself when you don't necessarily need to do that. So, learning how to think for yourself is a very, very important skill, and I will never let you bypass it by thinking that I figured it all out and you can just listen to me and that will solve your life, because it really won't. Just because something works for me does not mean that it will work for you. And just because I have discovered something to be true for me in my reality does not mean that it's true for you in your reality. A good example of this is if you take me and another person and we go sit at a stoplight and we watch it cycle through, you will see the light go from green to yellow to red. Or wait, will you see it go from green to orange to red? I suppose that is up to each person's interpretation of their own reality, isn't it? So, I wouldn't say either of those people are wrong, but they might think the other is wrong. So the way that you perceive your reality is always going to be very different than how I perceive my reality. And just because I am convinced that stoplights are orange does not mean that they are. Okay? In my world, they are. But in your world, they might not be, and that's okay. So, all of that to say, you need to be able to think for yourself, and you need to be able to hold to your own opinions when someone that you look up to or admire or are listening to says something that you wildly disagree with. That's okay. That's okay. There's space for us to all have different opinions, and you need to have the strength and the wherewithal to hold to your own opinions if you are going to be listening to literally anyone on the internet, but that is my rule if you're going to be listening to me, okay? Now, here's the little side quest of that. I love listening to people who have thoughts and opinions that I don't necessarily agree with because I like seeing how it changes the way that I think, or it changes my beliefs or my perceptions. So, with that being said, if I say something that genuinely changes your perceptions, your thoughts, and your beliefs, then congratulations, you're not wasting your time here. You're learning new things. We love to see it. It's just a matter of having the emotional capacity, the emotional strength and wherewithal to compare and contrast. If I say something that you agree with or something that you disagree with, do you have the ability to compare and contrast that to your beliefs and see, is this an area for expansion or is this something that I disagree with and therefore will disregard? So, rule number one, just because I'm right does not mean it's true. Rule number two, make sure that you know how to think for yourself. Rule number three, the law of polarity, okay? Nothing is true 100% of the time, okay? We all might say that water is good for everybody. That's not true in all cases. Have you ever seen one of those episodes of like a medical show where they're like, literally, don't let this guy drink water? Like, he cannot have water. He has surgery or like whatever, right? They're like, this guy cannot have water. Like, do not give him water. And then the rest of us are all out here trying to drink 3 water bottles a day. Right? Nothing is true 100% of the time for 100% of people. So if I say, and I'll say things like they're definite fact. If I say something is fact, it does not mean that it's true. Okay? It just doesn't. It just doesn't, because it might not be true for you. And the law of polarity proves that. Okay? So rule number 4 is do not blindly follow anyone or anything. Okay? Do not blindly follow. It is so dangerous. I've seen so many people fall victim or prey to blind leading the blind. Blind leaders leading people and telling them how to think, how to feel, telling them what's good for them. And the people who are listening just kind of going with it because they don't know any better. I have watched this hurt people that I care about. I have watched this hurt people that I don't know. And nothing makes me more mad than influencers, podcasters, teachers, guides who are saying things that they A, don't necessarily know to be true, or B, are convincing their listeners is true without reminding their listeners to take it with a grain of salt, to see if it applies. I know that for some people, dairy works really, really well in their body, and for other people, it really fucking doesn't, okay? And that's because it's different for everyone. So if I tell you that a certain mindset or a certain activity is just absolute shit for your brain, bro, like, don't believe me. Test it. Is it shit for your brain or is it shit for my brain? Okay? All I can tell you in this podcast, in any of my future courses, in any of my sessions, is what I have learned to be true. And just because it's true for me does not mean that it's true for you. So, with that being said, as we progress through this podcast or any type of work that you do with me, I will always be reminding you to think for yourself. I will tell you, check that. Is it true for you? It is up to you to determine if it is. And I also want to remind you that just because something is true today does not mean that it will be true tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, okay? There have been times that I have lived by a rule for myself or a mindset that has been very true for me and worked very, very well for me for X amount of time, and then all of a sudden it stops being true. And there's a reason for that. It doesn't mean that you were wrong. It doesn't mean that you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you've been doing something you shouldn't be or following a rule you shouldn't be for so long. What it means is there are different layers to each thing that we learn and that we go through and that we experience, okay? So if you find a, let's say, mindset that works really, really well for you, and you live by this mindset for months and months and months, maybe it's something you pick up on my podcast and you're like, holy shit, like this mindset just works for me. It's fixing my problems in this area, yada, yada, yada. And then eventually something comes along that challenges that mindset and you're like, holy shit, this mindset isn't even like real. This mindset is not the end all be all. This mindset was not the solution. That does not mean that the mindset itself, the rule of thumb, whatever it was wrong. What it means is that you've discovered a new layer to it. And I like to think of our healing and our journey forward in life as something that's filled with fucking layers, like levels of a video game, basically. Okay. So like if you have this mindset that really works for you, like that's level 1. And then something comes along and it challenges the mindset and you realize that there's a deeper layer to it. And so then you adjust the mindset a little bit and suddenly it works better. Okay, great. You just reached level 2. You do that a few times, you're on level 4. You're like, this is great. In fact, I think I have completely solved a false belief of mine, or I've rewritten a script in my brain that wasn't serving me. And then something comes along that shows you, actually, this is not done and gone. You're not over this thing. You're not done dealing with it. There's another level. That again does not mean that you're stupid, that you failed, that you didn't get as deep as you were supposed to. What it actually means is that congratulations, you have grown so much. You have gotten to know yourself so much. You have gotten so far past your own ego that you are now able to see a deeper level. And you might get to level 10 on one thing and level 50 on another. You might only get to level 2 on one thing. And that is the beautiful part of being alive, is you will get to different levels on different things at different points in life, and there is no way to dictate or control how much you learn or grow. You are just going to learn and grow and heal what you can, when you can, as it comes up. And just because a new piece of information comes up that contradicts how you were doing things in the past doesn't mean it was wrong. It just means you have come to understand a deeper level. Now, this is important, A, for your own healing, so that you don't beat yourself up if you come to a new level on something. And B, I am just human, okay? I could be wrong. I also could be super fucking right for 6 months. And then I might realize that there's a deeper level, another layer, and actually it's not true anymore. And that is why, even if I say something is true, if it's not true for you, guess what, babe? Maybe you're on a deeper level than I am for that thing. Maybe you know more. Maybe you know less. It doesn't matter. If it's not resonating, then it's not true for you right now. It doesn't mean it won't be true later, and it doesn't mean it wasn't true once in the past. But if it's not hitting, it's not true for you, and that's okay. Okay? So I think that that is a really good way to describe how just because something I say is true doesn't mean it's right, because it can be true for me and wrong for you. It can also be true for me and right for you. It's just going to depend on where you are, where I am, and if the timelines are matching up right now, okay? And then again, law of polarity. Even if I say something that is so fucking true, okay? It's so true. It doesn't mean that it's true for everyone, and it doesn't mean that it's true 100% of the time. Okay? It's just as simple as it is. So that is like the number one thing that I want you to take away from this is there's always room to grow, and there's always room for something to not fit. There's always room for something to not be true. Okay? I just cannot stress that enough. And again, when you are blindly following someone without fully thinking for yourself and without fully allowing your psyche, your consciousness to determine whether or not something is actually true for you, you lose so much. You end up in a situation where you aren't thinking for yourself. You end up going forward through life following other people's directions, following other people's paths, their step by step, right? If I say, hey, if you do steps 1 through 3, A, B, C, you're going to get this result. And then you do it because I said so. You probably won't get that result because all you're doing is what Danielle told you to do. You're not actually deeply resonating or emotionally connecting to what it is that I'm trying to teach you. And a lot of what I'm going to teach you is a lot of subconscious mind reprogramming, how to hack the brain, how to fully get through the way that your brain will trauma respond to things rather than like raw respond to things, how to fully break through the ego. Also think it's important to mention that another one of the dangers of blindly following is if I say, hey, this is a formula for ABC, if you do these things, you will fix this, or you'll reprogram this thing in your brain, or you'll overcome this hurdle in your mind. And then you're like, okay, great. That sounds wonderful. Danielle said this would work, so I'm just going to do it. And then it doesn't work. You might run into that problem because you're not thinking for yourself. You're not emotionally connected to why does this work? Why am I doing this? If you're just doing things because someone that you trust or look up to is telling you to do them, you're not going to know what kind of results to look for. You're not going to know how to catch when things are happening that are contradicting the work that you're doing and actually undoing the work, right? There are so many little ins and outs that you need to fully understand for different things that different people are telling you to actually apply and work in your reality. So blindly following without asking questions, without thinking for yourself, without fully understanding is oftentimes one of the worst things that you can do for yourself, because you're not actually learning, you're not actually reprogramming your mind or grasping the information that's being handed to you. Instead, you are taking on information that someone said, hey, this will work, and you don't even know why it's going to work. And then you're sitting here using it going, is it working? I don't really know. Yeah, you don't know, because you don't know how to tell, because you didn't ask any questions and you don't actually understand why you're doing the thing that you're doing. So that is just another reason why, so many whys. That's another reason why it is so important to think for yourself, ask questions, understand whether or not something applies to you, whether or not it applies to your reality before you go blindly following. With that being said, I love questions. So if at any point people have questions, you can always, 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 always ask me your questions, because I love answering questions, and nothing is more important to me than making sure that people fully understand this type of stuff and that they never feel like they are just blindly taking in information that I'm sharing with them and just taking it on to be true, because that is just not the way to get through anything. And nothing triggers and upsets me more than influencers, podcasters, teachers who just say things as true with no backup explanation, allow people to follow in their footsteps without understanding why, and ultimately end up hurting themselves, programming false things into their brains, and sometimes even making decisions that don't ultimately affect their future in a positive way because, oh, well, my favorite podcaster said, okay, well, why? And they don't know the answer to that. So that's my commitment to you, is you will always know the answer to that. I'm not going to tell you to blindly do some shit. And if I do, you can be like, hey, bitch, you forgot to explain the why. And I will come back and I will explain the why for you. All of that being said, I would like to explain to you one last thing, which is essentially what we are going to be doing here on the podcast. So I will talk about any number of things, from trauma healing to reprogramming the subconscious mind to working through PTSD to doing energy work to learning how to get past the ego. We will define a lot of things, like defining ego, defining chakras. What even is energy work? Like, how the fuck does energy work actually make my mental better? You know what I mean? We will literally be doing and talking about anything and everything when it comes to the concept of bettering your mental state. I spent years of my life in deep suffering. I almost lost my life quite a few times to the deep suffering that I was in because of my mental. I had no control over what was going on in my brain. I did not want to be in my brain. I wanted to turn my brain off and light myself on fire. I wanted nothing to do with my brain for years. And I never, ever want anybody to experience what I did for two reasons. Number one, it was the most horrible fuck shit I've ever been through. So painful. And number two, it's just not necessary. No one has to go through that. It is just a matter of understanding your energetics and your mind. And if you can understand your energetics and your mind, you can control the way that you think. You can control the way that you feel. You can control your energy and what is pulling on it, what is draining you, what is harming you. You can reprogram the programs in your mind that keep you stuck in old ways of being, that are harming your mental, your physical, that are harming your ability to focus or your ability to get through things. You can literally cure depression through this work. I have done it myself. Ask anyone who has known me since I was about 13 and suicidal that you can literally cure your whole fucking life with mental and energetic work. That's all it is. You just need to understand and know what you're doing. So I'm here to teach you that. And I'm going to be very upfront with you right now. There are some things that I will literally only sell you because this is my life's work. I have spent my blood, sweat, and tears learning this stuff and understanding this stuff, intuiting this stuff. and some of it will not be free. Some of it will be free though. I would love for my podcast to be a place where people can learn real applicable tools and apply those to their life and see results. But I obviously will not give away absolutely everything on my podcast because ya girls gotta make a living. And you'll also notice that I just told you you can cure a bunch of things with my knowledge. Didn't I just say that? Now, let's exercise what we've learned in this podcast already, shall we? Do we think that that's true, Danielle? Maybe. For some people. For some people. I'm one of them. I am one of the people who completely cured and changed my fucking life, cured my depression with this work and this understanding. Now, does that mean it will work for you? I don't know. You're different. Only you can know the answer to that. So you can take some time, listen to the things that I say, listen to my latest episodes, and determine, is this work going to work for me? One thing I would love to point out here is that I was having a conversation with my best friend, and we were talking about how we kind of almost feel bad that some people will never be able to grasp the energetic work that we do because it's been so fucking powerful and so fucking helpful in our lives. It's literally just transformed everything for us. And the idea that some people will go their whole lives without doing this work, I'm like, that hurts me. I'm like, how could you oh my God, that must be terrible. And then I kind of took a step back and I realized it's all the same. Okay. What I call trauma healing, she calls, what does she call it? Masculine and feminine polarity work. Okay. Through that kind of energetic work and masculine feminine energy understanding, she can work through healing her traumas. For me, I just call it trauma healing, and I go with a lot of psychological techniques because I've spent years and years and years in therapy and I understand a lot of psychological techniques. And then I also add energetic healing to it. Now, we might call it those things. Other people might call it therapy. Other people might call it anger management, right? And I have actually gotten myself in a situation where I was so fucking angry. I literally just want to crash my car and light myself on fire. I'm a fire sign, so you will hear me talk about lighting myself on fire a lot because I think sometimes I just want to return to my normal state, that state of fire. Anyways, so fucking angry. I literally want to light myself on fire. What did I do? I did energy work and I was like, oh, okay, we're not going to crash out. We're chill. I have calmed down. I'm going to be okay. So it's what I feel like I can cure and fix in 5 minutes with energy work. Other people feel like they need to go to an anger management group or see a therapist or do deep PTSD healing, whatever, right? So my point with that is that it's different for everyone and it's all the same. What I accomplish, my end result from energy work, is oftentimes the same end result that someone might experience from going to an anger management class or going to AA or going to therapy or journaling or working on masculine feminine polarity. Okay. So what works for you might not work for me, and what works for me might not work for you. So you have to find your own flavor of healing, your own brand that will take you to where you want to be. And that is the thing I want to encourage you to fully understand about yourself is, what is your goal? What is your goal? My goal was to stop suffering at the hand of my own mind. I was so fucking tired of feeling trapped in my brain. I was so fucking tired of feeling like my brain was my biggest enemy. So all I knew is that I needed to find a way to be friends with my brain, love my brain, want to be in my brain. And I did through energetic healing and a lot of therapy. We will talk about that as well because I do think that they can go hand in hand and that they can be very important. For some people, only one or the other works. But I do encourage a lot of people to try therapy if you can find the right therapist for you, which is probably its own podcast episode. Long fucking story. We'll get to that later if you guys want to. All of that to say, make sure you have a goal in mind. What do you want? I was done suffering at the hand of my brain. I did not want to feel like my mental was the thing that was holding me back. So I decided it was time to change my life. Now, if you're I just have some trauma that I want to heal, I actually pretty much like being in my brain, that's good. You're in the right place. We're good here. This whole little rant was basically just to say that you might at one point or another drop off and decide that actually the way Danielle does things is not how my brain heals. It's not how my brain works. It's not what works for me. But I do have a goal in mind, so I'm going to go try these other things instead. I love that for you. Like, I literally encourage it, okay? I'm not for everyone, and everyone's not for me. So no harm, no foul. As long as you're thinking for yourself, okay? That's like my fucking mantra, okay? As long as you're thinking for yourself. And if you are thinking for yourself, you will know at one point or another if my methods don't work for you. You will know at one point or another, man, this bitch is crazy. If you're thinking that, then guess what? My methods probably don't work for you, okay? And that's okay. That's okay. So, all that to say, think for yourself. Just because I'm right does not mean that it's true. The law of polarity dictates that just because something is true does not mean that it's true 100% of the time for 100% of people. And it is very, very dangerous to blindly follow without understanding why or checking in with your own gut, your own intuition, and determining, is this true for me in my reality right now? Or am I on a different level? Now, I would like to also specify one last thing. Just because you are on a different level, or just because I'm on a different level, does not mean that one is better than the other, okay? You might be way ahead of me on one topic. That does not make you better than me. I might be way ahead of you on another topic. That does not make me better than you, right? It's like Earth School. We're all here for our own fucking reasons, learning our own fucking things. I'm here to teach what I can, who I can, and help people with their mental and their energetic. That doesn't mean anything. That does not, like, there's no meaning applied to that, okay? So if I say something and you're like, yeah, Danielle, like, I know that, we learned that 10 years ago. No, honey, you learned that 10 years ago. I just learned that. You know what I mean? And if I say something that's brand new information to you, congratulations. I'm so glad that you're learning things, but also do not put me on a pedestal, okay? I'm not better than you. I'm not smarter than you. I'm not this fucking Jesus type that you're supposed to be following. I will block you so fucking fast if I feel like you're pedestaling me. It's not even funny because it's dangerous. It is not how you learn. It is not how you grow. It is not how you reach success. It is not how you heal your mental, right? Like, oh yeah, like let's put Danielle on a little like Jesus pedestal, make her our savior. That will not help you. That will not help you at all. In fact, I need you to see me as human, okay? I need you to see me as someone who can be wrong because God forbid I fucking teach you guys something someday that like actually was not right. Okay, great. Like that's part of my soul lesson. That's part of the things that I'm supposed to learn. But you have to have the wherewithal to be like, Danielle, this doesn't resonate with me. This is not going to work for me, but I'm so glad that that's working for you, right? So think for yourself. Can't stress it enough. And I'll ask you, check in. Does that resonate with you? Is that true in your reality? Okay, now that I've rambled for fucking ever about making sure that you're not blindly following and making sure that things are actually true for you, I think that we are roughly done with our very first podcast episode. I hope that you loved it. They will only get better from here because I've never recorded a podcast before. So they will literally only get better from here as I learn how to be a podcaster. How fucking fun. One last thing I will leave you with is, over the course of time, if you ever have a topic that you want me to cover in the podcast, please let me know. I love responding to questions and I love creating based off of what you guys are most interested in. So with that being said, you can always send podcast inquiries via my website. There will be like a request a podcast section where you can request a specific topic that you would like to hear me talk about. You can also email me at daniellerose@thecenteredsoulco.com, and I will always be more than happy to reply to you there. I know I talked a lot today about the different potential things that we will be talking about in the future. We are not limited to those topics. I just kind of wanted to give you a general idea of what we might cover in the future and allow you to better understand. Lord knows how this podcast will unfold and travel as the years go by. I certainly hope that it only gets deeper and deeper and more fun. And the last thing that I will leave you with is if you are ever interested in working with me one-on-one, I do accept private clients. That is where you will get the most in-depth, the most intense healing, because there I will be able to give you literally everything that I know about what you are dealing with, and I can privately intuit for you psychically what path and what kind of modalities will be best for you to reach your goals. My clients see insane progress very, very quickly after a session, and you always get your money's worth. So you can always book with me privately. And if you're unsure, you can always, send me a message and let me know what it is that you're looking to achieve. And I can let you know what session might be best for you, or if I'm even the right person to help you. So with that being said, I love you guys so much. Thank you for joining me with our very first podcast episode. I'm so fucking excited. I'm just so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to finally be doing this. I actually bought my mic and my headphones, must have been 2.5 months ago. No, it was like a month and a half ago. It was all part of my work for the rebrand because we just rebranded. Actually haven't rebranded yet. I am filming this pre-rebrand in preparation for the rebrand because I want to have several episodes ready to go by the time we do rebrand. So I'm very excited. Anyways, with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you for listening. Make sure that you rate the podcast, share with friends. It helps so much. And I hope that this episode brought you one step closer to achieving a centered soul.